EP tries to bully a platoon of infantrymen on the 4th of July and learns her lesson. Backstory: joined the army right out of high school. During basic training, I volunteered for a unit within the army known as the Old Guard. TOG from here on. TOG is responsible for ceremonies in the DC area and funerals in Arlington National Cemetery, amongst other duties. TOG consists of units you may have heard of, such as the US Army Drill Team and the Sentinels of the Tomb of the Unknowns, as well as lesser-known platoons such as the Presidential Gun Salute Battery and the US Army Continental Color Guard, and is the oldest active unit in the Army. I only say this to emphasize that TOG isn't some unheard-of rifle company from BFE. It's a fairly big deal in the Army and in the DC area in general. Story time. So no shit, there we were. It's the 4th of July in DC. Big celebration, all kinds of stuff going on. I'm sure you can picture it. Most of the celebration goes on in front of the Capitol on the National Mall. As part of the festivities, my unit, the Presidential Gun Salute Battery, fires the baseline for the performance of the 1812 Overture. 3-inch anti-tank guns firing blanks. Only the more seasoned guys in the platoon get picked to do it, so the rest of us are given a cordoned-off area in the very front. We bring some food, some chairs, our families, and we have a cookout during the day and watch the show when it starts. During the earlier parts of the day, it isn't too crowded, but as evening draws near, it becomes packed in, nearly shoulder to shoulder. Fortunately, as I mentioned before, we had our own area at the front, roped off from the general public, giving us ample room to have our cookout. Perk of working for the government. Throughout the day, we would have people politely ask if they could join us. We said no, but were always respectful. We weren't in uniform, but we had our unit t-shirts on, so we were still representing the army. Enter Karen. It's midway through the afternoon, still a few hours before the show. We're enjoying the weather and the time off. I happen to be near the edge of our area when I hear someone behind me. I turn around and there she is, pinched face and a haircut that says, "I want to speak with your manager's manager." Karen: "Excuse me, young man. Could you ask your father to take this rope down? This is supposed to be a public area for everyone, and my kids can't see the Capitol. Mind you, there are signs hanging on the rope every 5 feet explaining the purpose of the rope." Me, with my best PR smile: "I'm sorry, ma'am. This area is reserved for members of TOG and their families. If you'd like to come back a little closer to dusk, we'll be taking the rope down around then." Karen: "TOG? I've never heard of that before." Me, always happy to drop knowledge: "Ma'am, TOG is the primary ceremonial unit for the US Army and escort to the President of the US of a Karen. I don't see the President. Shouldn't you be escorting him or something then?" Rolls eyes me. I had no idea how to respond to that. Fortunately, I was saved. Platoon Sergeant, PSG from here on, places hand on my shoulder. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Sergeant First Class Guy in Charge." Obviously made up name. "What seems to be the problem?" As I knew this was my cue to GTFO, I went back to my chair and observed their interaction. Couldn't hear anything, but the interaction concluded with Karen walking away looking annoyed. Didn't think anything else of it until about 2 hours later. We're cleaning up our trash, breaking down the chairs and tables and such. Out of the corner of my eye, I see Karen approaching again, this time with 2 Capitol police officers in tow. PSG must have noticed too. I heard him mutter, "What in the few?" under his breath as he walked to intercept the trio. I didn't hear all of the conversation, but we all heard about it later. PSG: "Officers, what seems to be the problem?" Cops: "Obviously exasperated by the situation." Sergeant Guy in Charge: "We received a report that your soldiers were making lewd gestures and comments towards this woman's family. Is there any truth to this?" PSG laughs. "Absolutely not. I've been supervising them all day. Nothing even close to that has happened today." Cops, nodding as though this was what they expected. "We had assumed that, but we had to follow up. Sorry to bother you." Karen: "You mean you're going to just let them sit there and hog up all of the space? I drove my kids 9 hours to see this." Cops: "Ma'am, these men are here with the expressed permission of the Capitol Police and the District of Columbia. There are signs there," points to a sign not 3 feet away, "that explicitly state that." PSG, trying to defuse the situation: "Ma'am, we're cleaning up our area right now. As soon as we are done, we will be removing the rope to let everyone in. If you can be patient and wait, We can get you and your family right up front here in about 20 minutes. Karen proceeded to stare at them, much like a cow stares at an incoming train. Then she spun around and walked away without another word. We think it's all over. We go back to what we were doing. We were wrong. We're just finishing up, taking the ropes off of the pylons and stacking the pylons in the arms of another dude in the platoon. Out of nowhere, here comes Karen, trailed by her 4 children and obviously stressed spouse. I'm assuming spouse could have been boyfriend or baby daddy. It's about time! Get out of my way! Karen all but screams as she goes barreling right through Private Another Guy. Gotta pause here for a second. To be in Togj, you have to be between 5'10" inches, 178 centimeters, and 6'4" inches, 193 centimeters, and maintain the Army standard of physical fitness. To add to that, TOG is an infantry unit. If you aren't aware, infantry are generally the frontline soldiers in combat, and we are trained for just that. So, suffice to say, none of us were small nor weak. Karen was probably around 180-ish. So when I say she barreled through this dude, I mean it. She put some force into it. Another guy goes sprawling to the ground. Steel pylons fly in every direction. A couple hit him in the face, chipped a tooth, and split his eyebrow open. One pylon bounces off the ground and hits one of Karen's putrophies in the leg. The kid, probably 12 or 13, starts wailing like he lost a limb. As we are helping another guy to his feet, Karen is losing every last ounce of her shit. Red-faced, screaming about how she's going to sue us for assault, how we probably aren't even real soldiers, how we've ruined her family vacation, blah blah blah. At this point, PSG is done with her. If Karen thought she was being loud, she quickly learned there are few things louder than a pissed-off senior NCO. With a single word, he quieted everyone within 50 feet of us. PSG, stop. Paused for dramatic effect. That is enough. You have been harassing me and my soldiers all afternoon. We have tried to be nice. We have tried to be respectful. You have been nothing but rude. Now, you've injured one of my soldiers. This stops. Now. I think Karen might have had a small stroke right then. She stood, mouth agape, not able to utter a single word. And then, as if right on cue, here come those 2 Capitol policemen. They hadn't been far away, and had seen the entire incident. I didn't think Karen's eyes could get any wider, until the first officer pulled out a pair of cuffs and said, "Ma'am, turn around and put your hands behind your back. You are under arrest for assault and harassment." She tried every excuse she could think of, but the cops were having exactly none of her shit. They talked to another guy. He wanted to press charges, so they carted her off. I don't know what the father did with the kids. They disappeared when the cops took Karen. Come to find out after another guy comes back from the court hearing, Karen had been carrying 3 bottles of pills that weren't hers, and 2 stolen credit cards when the cops searched her. No idea what kind of time she got, but it wasn't enough. After all was said and done, we watched the 1812 overture and laughed about Karen for weeks afterward. Another guy was fine, a chipped tooth and a little bit of bruising. Nothing major, fortunately.